Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have another incredible guest. His name is Jim Crider, and he is out of Texas, just living up his dreams, has a wonderful family, him and 3 boys, correct? Right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I've got 2 boys, not 3, but they're a lot of work, so I don't know why you had a 3rd, but happy for you. Hopefully you have more if you want more, and you don't if you don't.
Oh, man, it's nuts. Yeah, we've got 3 boys all in 3 years, so things are busy.
Your wife must be able to recover quickly from those things. I don't know. Not mine. But hey, thank you for making the time to come on here. Jim helps people reach their goals, reach their fantasies, everything that they want in life. He helps them achieve it by helping them align their time and resources to really believe that anything is possible for them. So I'm excited to have you on. Go ahead and share with us your story of kind of where you came from, why you're doing what you're doing now, and where you see yourself headed in the future.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I'll give you a snapshot of present, and then we'll rewind and work our way forward to present time again. So I have a business. I help people align their resources with what is most important to them in life. So establish first off, what is important to you as an individual and you as a family, and how do we align your time, your wealth, your talents with that? So you're actually living intentionally. I have a financial planning firm. It's called Intentional Living FP. And that's where I'm at right now. So how did I get to where I am? I have a degree in business management. I worked a lot of odd jobs after school, really not knowing what I wanted to do. And I worked in sales in a few different capacities, and I'm horrible at sales. So after skipping around job to job for a bit, I started thinking about stress and the top stressors of people. And the number one cause of divorce is arguments about money, and how people just have misalignment with what they say is important to them, and then how they actually use the resources they have. And I thought, wow, that would be an amazing thing to do, to actually help people understand what they value in life and then align their resources with that. So I spent time, I started working in finance and in personal finance in a few different capacities, and spent way more time studying than most people would ever like to. I enjoy learning and continue growing and understanding taxes and estate and investments and all those sorts of things. So I studied that for quite a bit. I have what's called my Certified Financial Planner, or CFP. And I started my own firm where I'm able to work specifically with young families to help them achieve early independence. So that's the type of people I get to work with daily. Is frankly, it's people like me. I'm 31. I'm married with 3 kids, and I don't want to have to work forever. It's not that I hate work by any means. If I won the lottery today, I'd keep doing what I do. I just want early optionality. So that's what I help people with: achieve early optionality and work optionality in their life.
I think that's incredible. So in a previous conversation, you had mentioned that for about 7 months you were unemployed before making the jump into this. What led to that period of unemployment, and how do you survive for 7 months without income?
So fortunately, at that point, we did not have 3 kids. We didn't have kids. My wife was working. Things were tight for sure. And that's really what led to these conversations about working in the space I do in finance. Financial stress is a real thing. And I would love to be able to help people alleviate those stresses and navigate those roads, even when there's turbulence. Being able to navigate those better. Now, where I'm at currently, actually, so we fast forward here, we have a few kids, and my wife watches our kids. But when I started my business, my wife and I agreed that we're not going to take a salary or an income for just under 2 years. So that obviously I'm pretty young to be able to do that and not take a salary for a couple of years is a big commitment. But fortunately, just because the discipline and the habits that we have and that we've had for a number of years allow us that flexibility to go and pursue things that are important to us right now, namely starting a business and spending time wherever we want, doing the things we want to do.
Okay. So I'm curious, before you became unemployed, right? You guys were both working odd jobs. And I'm not at all a favor of doing something you don't love. So if it's unemployment, then that's fine. I don't really care. But I'm curious, oftentimes people get married, especially young people. They get married. They don't really have a goal or focus of where they're going. They're just like, hey, we're in love. Let's get married. And they think that that's all that is required to have an effective relationship is some loving feelings, some sexual attraction, whatever it is. And like, hey, we've got a solid marriage. And with the right resources, maybe a lot of those holes in a relationship aren't exposed. But just like anything, when you put it under pressure, that's when those holes get exposed. What were some of the things that you think you could have, like hindsight, right? So now looking back, maybe it would have been beneficial to talk about these things before you got married, so you had a clear idea of what your objectives were before the financial stress came. Because last year, lots of people lost their jobs. Unemployment was probably more of a choice than anything for you. But for those who it's not a choice for, that stress is still going to happen. What are some things that people could ask themselves or their spouse to strengthen that relationship before hardship comes?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. Fortunately, my wife and I, we were very similar and have a fantastic relationship. And she was already before we got married, she already knew about my entrepreneurial streak and my, I guess, sense of whimsy. If I see an opportunity and I'm willing to bet on myself, and if I think something is not right or something is done improperly, then I'm willing to speak up. So the job that I was at, I found out there was some unscrupulous behavior going on by the management, which I confronted. They acted like it wasn't a big deal. So that's why I ended up leaving that job, which led to unemployment for a sustained period of time. So my wife, knowing my character and then my tendencies for entrepreneurial, endeavors, those sort of things, she knew what she was getting into when she married me. But no, I definitely agree. And this is something that, again, I mentioned that, money is the number one cause of divorce in the US, these types of conversations. And ultimately, it's not money itself. Like, money is just a tool to help you do what's important to you in life. The reason there's these arguments is because there's a misalignment or miscommunication about what is actually important. So if one spouse is spending a whole bunch of money on coffee and the other one just wants to save everything, there's going to be tension. And it's not because the dollars themselves, but rather, one spouse may feel, hey, you're not wanting me to enjoy my day to day. And the other one's thinking, well, gosh, I don't want to have to work forever. So it's meeting in the middle. So you asked, like, what types of conversations could you have had earlier on? And frankly, what you need to discuss is what is ultimately important to you in life. For instance, a lot of people talk about goals. Like, at this time, I would like to be able to have a house in the mountains, or, lose this weight, or do this thing. Now, goals are really important. Goals are a way of establishing what direction we head and the next best action to take. But frankly, if you only have a goal and don't understand what the purpose is behind the goal, you're going to probably miss what you're aiming for anyways. Like, for instance, sort of a shallow example, but if your goal is to lose weight, there's a few ways you can do that. And there's healthy ways and there's unhealthy ways. But if your intent in being healthy is to be able to, like for me, I have 3 young boys. I should be able to beat my kids in any sport until they're about 18. That's my thought. So in order for me able to do that, I need to maintain a healthy lifestyle, exercise and eat well and stretch and be flexible. I should be able to do those things so I can be able to keep up with my kids even later on. Okay, so that is the motivator behind the goal. So the goal itself is be healthy, exercise, stay fit, all those things, but to support that lifestyle. Okay, if the goal was simply be in good shape, yeah, there's shortcuts I could do that would not actually be a healthy lifestyle and would be counterintuitive and counterproductive with actually doing what I want, which is to be able to be there with my kids. So that's what a lot of people have, even having conversations around work and finances and all these things, like you can feel like you're aligned, but if you have to understand where you're actually coming from, not just the goal itself, but the thing behind what you want.
So how does somebody who's 18, and I don't know, in Texas, maybe people get married older. In Utah, people are getting married at like 18, 19, 20 years old. So how does somebody that young, they barely even moved out of their parents' house, if that, like when I married my wife, she was living like 2 miles away at the college campus. But then as soon as we got engaged, she moved back in with her parents until we got married, right? Which I'm not slagging on, whatever, it's fine. But like, how does somebody like that in that situation who hasn't really experienced life, they're still a child, and from all psychological perspectives, not legally, but from psychology perspective, they are. How does somebody like that really go about identifying what is important? What are those motivators? Like, what are some questions they could ask themselves to go a little bit deeper than just, what's important to me? How are we coming at it from the same perspective? What are some questions that can help them go deeper?
Really, it's going to sound simple, but just continuing to ask why in a you don't want to come off as just provoking someone and just being annoying, but just continue to ask, well, why is that important to you? And not taking a surface answer, but allowing to actually continue to peel those layers back. That can be really helpful. Also, I mean, there's other things you could do. Like if you've heard about, it's called a postmortem. So for a postmortem, someone dies and you look back and say like, what went wrong here? And then you can answer these questions. So then there's a thing called a premortem. So a premortem is, hey, we look forward to sometime in the future and everything either went great or went horribly. What took place to end up where we're at? So you could also do a premortem with your spouse or with someone else. Like, hey, down the line, we've achieved these things. We're very happy. What did we need to do in order to achieve these things? Looking forward now. But again, just as simple as asking why. So for instance, as a kid, I always thought it'd be really neat to have a private jet until someone challenged me. Said, well, why do you want that? That's really expensive. Oh, it'd be great to be able to go wherever I want, not have to worry about, booking flights and flight cancellations. It's like, well, you don't actually have to own a jet. You can get, like a timeshare through NetJet or something like that. Like, oh, so I thought I wanted a private jet, but actually what I wanted was convenience. And there's other ways of doing that. So all you have to do is ask, why do you want that? So yeah, it could be that simple of, talking with a future spouse or friends, or frankly, just getting to know yourself better is, hey, I think I want this, but why is that important to me? I've worked with a lot of families to manage wealth and stuff like that. And a big misalignment that people have in their families and in their financial lives is not asking themselves why they want something or losing sight of that. So back in the day, I used to help with a lot of like high net worth families with their retirements and stuff. And a lot of these people were successful in all means that if someone looked at them from outside and, looked at their house and their bank account, they would think they're doing great. But all these people are actually pretty miserable. And that doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a sustained period of time of forgetting to ask yourself, why I'm actually doing these things. So like, for instance, a very common conversation I have with someone who's older and financially successful is, oh, well, when I was a kid, we didn't have much money growing up. I wanted to make sure that my kids had a better childhood than I had. So I would get a great, high income job and my kids would have a good childhood. We fast forward 30 years, their kids are grown up. We're sitting down talking about retirement and stuff. And they have these great toys. And then I'm asking about their kids like, hey, you said that you wanted to be successful so you could support your kids. How was that? Like, how was it being a dad and raising kids? Was it everything you hoped it would be? And then there's this long pause. And then so often they come to realize, you know what? I don't know. I actually never got to know my kids well enough because I was so busy always working. So that's really sad. You wanted all of that stuff so you could support your kids having a good childhood, yet you lost focus of the actual value in hopes in search of the goal itself. I think it's in the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. It talks about having a ladder leaning up against a wrong wall. Like, so many people climb a ladder really well, but only when they're really high up, they look and they realize, oh my gosh, I'm not even leaning against the thing I actually wanted to achieve. Yeah, maybe I'm climbing great, but I'm pursuing the wrong things. And you have to ask, why am I doing this? And it's something you have to continually ask. Like, gosh, my wife and I, we got married relatively young. I was 22 and I've been married for just over 9 years. These are conversations we regularly have, is why are we doing these things? I could be an employee right now somewhere else, making a lot more money than I am right now, especially the fact that I'm not making any money currently. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not paying a salary at all. And that's a conversation we have. Why would I decide to go and start my own business right now when I can go do something else and make a fantastic income? But we ask ourselves, why do we want this? And it comes back to time freedom and location independence and the ability to, instead of driving to an office every day and spending an hour in the car commuting, I get to wake up and play dinosaurs and monster trucks with my kids every day before I go and meet with my clients. So it's looking at, well, why do you actually want what you want?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's huge. And it goes back to really the whole purpose of this show, which is why I wanted Jim on here, is you almost could change the name of it. Instead of being a certified financial or whatever planner, right? Be a certified life planner. I mean, because that's really what it is. It's about their life. Money literally doesn't mean anything. Well, for many people, it does mean something, which is unfortunate. And it speaks more to past trauma, that money means anything, because money is just a tool, just like water or a chair or anything else. What really matters is, as you said, why do you want it, and what is that providing for you? In my business, and if you've listened to the podcast, you've heard this, but the legacy building is really what I hope people are thinking about as they're listening to him. The first question I want to start out with people is, how do you want to be remembered? I believe you're worth being remembered. Jim believes you're worth being remembered. So how do you want to be remembered? Because it's not just what do you want to offer your children? I literally battle this with I say battle. It's an internal battle. My wife and I both have the internal battle, not with each other, but with the concept. And that is like, yes, as much as I didn't like being raised with a lack of things, right? Because there was 11 of us. I'm the 7th of 11 kids, and my parents were pizza drivers. So there was not a lot of money, and there was a lot of charity given to our family. And so how do you then create those perceived hardships that teach gratitude and teach hard work and do those things without, but still have nice things? Like, it's a very interesting, I don't know how to do it, because I've only I grew up with lack of things, and now I have stuff. I'm like, I don't really want to go back through a lack of things. So how do I teach these lessons while still having the lifestyle that I want? And so it's an interesting concept, but it starts with, how do you want to be remembered? And I definitely want my kids to remember me. I want to remember my children, and that's most important above all else. And so legacy, and then what are your core values? And that's another thing. Like, how many people would you say, Jim, that you meet with, they actually have identified what their core values are and what are going to be like their guiding rules to their life and their life choices?
Gosh, I've had probably around 20 to 25,000 conversations with people now in what I do, and I would say a dozen. So a fraction of a percent people actually have stopped to understand, what do I truly want? Now, some people sit down and make goals like once a year. We all know that setting goals is important. There's a lot of science behind that supports, just writing down goals, and there's a lot of value in it. But even very few of those people who write down their goals take it a step further and say, well, why do I have this goal, and what is this actually leading to? So yeah, it's very little. And that's like what you said, like your money and all these things, it's just a resource and a tool to help you do what's important to you. So if you don't actually know what's important to you, you're very apt to miss out what you actually want to do. You could be incredibly successful in any regard, but if you're not actually understanding, like base case, understanding what do I want, what are my goals, and what is that there to support, then you're going to miss it. And that's really it's very common. Most people don't stop to ask themselves, so what do I actually want to achieve? And frankly, I would think that's probably why you see so many people waste money on junk. You know, it always, even as a kid, it bothered me when I heard people say, like older people say, oh, I always wish I could have gone to Europe, but we just can't afford it. And I see that they're paying for like $300 a month in cable. I was like, okay, you say this is important to you, that you would go on your 30-year anniversary trip to Italy, but you can't afford it. But your pocketbook and your calendar is saying that it's not very important to you. So yeah, it's just actually stop and like, why do you want this? What do you want? How do we actually do it versus just coast through life or look at other people like, oh, well, these people have told me what success looks like, and I need to have, 2 great cars and this house and 2.5 kids and all these things, without actually stopping to say, like, what do we want? And how do we get there most efficiently and effectively?
So let's say though that I had somebody on the podcast. I don't know, it's probably been a few months. Her name is I don't know. I think it's Caitlin Hansen or something. Anyways, she was talking about, she studied anthropology, and she was talking about how in anthropology, language is such a massive barrier, right? So people who are raised, will say, for context of the podcast, don't get upset by my language here, because again, I'm limited, the same as I'm going to describe, right? So people who are raised in the ghetto, they're raised in poverty, they're raised in a lower mindset, right? They actually don't know the right words to find what they want. They don't even know the right questions. Their vocabulary is less than somebody who has more vocabulary. And because of that, they're then limited to actually find out the answers to these questions we're asking, and they don't really know the process. They don't know the questions asked. And you could say why, but then they ask why, and they don't know how to think deeper. And it's not because they can't. It's just literally they were never taught how. They were taught to survive rather than to dream. And I went through that a level of myself, and I'm still limited by my language. But when it comes to this aspect of deciding what you want, I think a lot of people, they can say, okay, well, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to look at my time. I'm going to look at what I really want, supposedly, and ask why. But how do they know, like, how do they switch that over and say, well, okay, what really fulfills me? What really, like, actually brings me happiness? How do they track that and to discover, because you might want something, as you said, because that's what everybody else around you says that you wanted. But so that's one half of it. And then the other half is, how do they actually be honest with themselves? There's a lot of people who were raised as habitual liars, and not like in a bad way. That's just, they were raised making excuses for their life, and they literally believe they can't do things. And so how do you help somebody really get honest with themselves about what they can achieve or what they could do in a different situation? Because most people, they have never considered and may never consider that they don't actually need cable TV. And that sounds so dumb from my perspective, but also it's like, I understand it, because everybody they know, it's like a governmental given right to have cable TV in their mind. So it's like, what do you mean you don't have cable TV? This is the weirdest thing ever. Of course I have cable, and they think that they're supposed to achieve something bigger while still having all these other things. And they don't, when you say, well, where can you save money? It never crosses their mind that they could save money there.
Yeah.
And so how do you help somebody self go through that? Obviously, if they're sitting down with somebody like you or me or somebody who's coaching them through their goals, then they would be able to achieve that and start looking at priorities. But if they've never been exposed to that, what are some questions they could ask themselves to help them through that process?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I want to pause first off and say, like, I agree with the fact that a lot of people don't know how to articulate what's important to them or what their goals are. And that's why actually I never lead off a conversation with a prospect or client with, well, hey, like, tell me your goals. Like most people don't just have their goals top of mind. And if you ask them, they're going to fill on the spot or just, I don't know, just come up with the first thing that comes to their head. So I think leading with goals themselves is not, it's not the route I like to take. So when I work with clients, there's more of a flow chart I could put out there. So it's anchored in values, and that is understanding what is truly important to you. Values then, those are the underlying why in your life. Like your values tend to stay pretty consistent. That leads into goals. Goals are more of the tangible things pursuant within your values. And then we have decisions. Everything in life requires a trade-off. There's always opportunity cost. If you want something, you will have to give up something else. Whether you do it intentionally or unintentionally, you are making that decision. So values, goals, decisions, and then actions. So to address your first question of how do I help someone articulate what's important to them, what they want to achieve, beyond simply just asking why whenever they give an answer, is there's a few questions I like to use that are, there's a guy named George Kinder. He actually is really big in what's called life planning or financial life planning. And he has 3 questions. And the first question that I walk clients through, and I give this actually as homework for an onboarding client. The first question is, if you had enough money to last the rest of your life, how would you spend your time? What would you do? And just allow the person to open up and just dream. Like, hey, if you had total time and financial freedom, like, okay, now what? What would you do? The second question makes things a little bit more close to home. And that's, hey, you go to the doctor tomorrow and you find out that you have 5 to 10 years left to live. How would you spend your time? Okay. And now that's obviously going to lead to a little bit more introspection about what's important to you and how you want to use that little bit of time left. And then the final question is, hey, you go to the doctor and this time you actually find out that you have 24 hours left to live. Now, the question with this is not how would you spend your last day? I think we all have fun and exciting answers on that one, but rather understanding your mortality is it's coming to an end. Your time here left. You have 1 day left. And thinking about it, what did you not get to experience? Who did you not become? What did you miss? What did you not get to do? And giving someone the space and the time to actually sit and think about those things. What did I not actually do? What are the things I'm going to miss? That question itself really helps people boil down to them what's important to them. And then once we've explored those questions, we take a step back. That can get pretty weighty. And I like to just talk about hey, describe to me an ideal day in a perfect year. And once I understand all of those things, like really what are foundationally the most important things in your life? What do you want to achieve? If money was not an issue, what would be your perfect day, perfect year? That really gives us a full perspective over like just the fun things that you'd like to achieve, but also like base case. If I were to die, this is what I'd ultimately miss. Like, okay, now let's dig into those things and make sure we're actually pursuing those. And then once we've done that, then we take an inventory check. And it's, hey, you said that these things are important to you, but your pocketbook and your calendar are saying that these things are important to you. Now, my job is not to tell someone how they should spend their time or how they should spend their resources, but rather to help them understand what is important to them and how to align what they have with those things. So that's frankly, once we go through those questions, and then we take a very clear snapshot of, well, here's where you're at right now. There's usually this a shift within the client themselves. I don't have to coach them through that. It's very eye-opening with, wow, I said that I don't want to have to work till I'm 40. I want to be able to retire at 45. Yet the way that I'm spending and saving right now says that I'm going to have to work forever. Okay, let's switch things up. If I think this is actually important to me, then let's align our life with that.
Yeah, and that's not even. Notice he's talking about life. Like, life could mean money, but also it could mean nothing about money, right? Because that equation that you just said, that's a lot of people. Yeah, I want to retire by 45 or 50 or whatever. And it's like how you're spending your time, forget the money. I mean, the fact is you're probably not making enough money to even make this conversation super relevant where you're at, which means, well, why do you keep trading your time for that money? Well, because I think I have to. Well, if you continue to trade your time at that rate of exchange, are you ever going to accomplish your goal? No. Okay, well, then we need to find something else that's going to get you a better exchange rate, right? I'm not going to keep going and trading my money into like Venezuelan money if I don't think that money holds any value. Why are you doing that with your time, right? Money it's a great analogy, but it really has nothing to do with what's important in our lives. It's the time that we're investing. And I'm guessing, so this is what I'm thinking, I wonder if people would, if they answered this question, this describing your perfect day, how many people I'm thinking if I put this on a spreadsheet and I had somebody write down their perfect day, my guess is, and this is just my having met with lots of people, my guess is nobody would put work or income earning activities on that perfect day. That's my guess. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody would be like, I'm going to go start a business, or I'm going to go to work for 4 hours and make $40. So I'm going to be able to go do, I don't know, buy a nice dinner for my wife. I don't know. Maybe somebody would do that. But my guess is if you have somebody describe their perfect day, nowhere on there is there any income generating activities. My guess. I'm curious what's been your experience when people are describing their perfect day? Does it include income generating activities or not?
At times. So the funny thing is, like, what I found is I guess I'm technically millennial, despite like not too hip on stuff. So I'm a millennial.
We're actually cuspers is what they call us, because we're like right in between Gen X and millennial. So there's like a hard line, but 3 to 5 years on either side of the hard line is called a cusper. So you have certain habits that are Gen X and certain habits that are millennial. Anyways,
gotcha. That's it. I'm on that cusp.
Funny.
Well, I found that when we think of like retirement and not working anymore, like probably picture our grandparents, and it's like they worked at GE for like 40, 50 years, and then they get a pension and they go play shuffleboard in Florida a couple months a year, and they watch Jeopardy and go to Golden Corral a few times a week, and then they die. That's not what I've had a lot of these conversations. No one that I've met with describes that. Again, the verbiage that I hear consistently is optionality, work optionality, time optionality, location optionality. And a lot of people I talk to are very motivated in their careers, and they don't want to initially stop working, but rather, I just wish I could do something that actually felt fulfillment in. So that could look like work, but ultimately it's aligning your time with what you're passionate about. If that means you're making money, hey, that's great. But if money's not an issue, but people still like to do things. They feel like they're giving back and contributing. But having that freedom to not have to worry about bringing in income allows you to get more creative and actually think, well, gosh, what am I actually passionate about? And then how can I spend my time on those things? And ironically, a lot of times you end up being wildly successful in that because you actually bring passion and charisma to that area. And then you get creative in that. I have clients who have way more resources than they will ever need. And yeah, they can stop working right now, but they continue doing it because they enjoy what they do. I think that is actually sort of the danger of traditional retirement is a lot of these people like quit work and then they die within a few years because like a lot of people in that space, like they realize after a few months, they're tired of playing golf with their friends twice a week. They're tired of their buddies. So yeah, I think it's a balance. Yeah. I've never talked to anyone who's like, man, if I had all the money in the world, yeah, I'd still keep commuting 2.5 hours a day to that 9 to 5 job, sit in my cubicle. That's what I get fulfillment out of.
Yeah. So this begs the question further is how would you then define work versus just following your passion, whether there's money or not, right? Because I still tell my kids, right? Hey, I'm going to work today. but I very rarely, like probably once or twice a month at most, feel like I'm going to do something that I don't want to do. Like, I love what I do. I love every part of what I do. I love recording podcasts. I love meeting with clients. I love speaking on stage. I love writing books. Like, I love everything I do. And yes, I've learned how to monetize it in large part simply because I don't like paying taxes. And if I'm going to do something, I'd rather do it with pre-tax dollars than post-tax dollars. So like, it just makes sense to me for there to be some form of business being done, so that I don't have to. I can increase the value of my dollars by like 25%, because now I don't have to pay taxes on it because it's a business write-off. So there's aspects of what I do that it just makes sense. It creates more optionality in my life, but I don't really feel like, and maybe you're similar here, but I don't feel like I ever go to work. I should say very rarely. I do occasionally, like once or twice a week, when I'm like, oh man, today is all paperwork. Today is a day in the office doing paperwork. This is going to be fun, But then I just turn on podcasts or books or something and listen, and I still am enjoying and growing while I'm doing it. So that there's very few days there, but I still tell my kids I'm going to work. Like, so from their perspective, I'm going to work. So what's a way to change that? And is work only when it's something you don't enjoy, or is work? I don't know. This is an interesting thing I've never thought about before, really. What are your thoughts?
I think a lot of people have either trained themselves or been trained to think that work has to be something that you don't enjoy. It has to be toil, and like, I don't know, it's probably goes back to school, like you're not, when you're in elementary school and middle school and high school, you can't decide, hey, I like these topics and I want to focus on these areas. Like I hated science as a kid. I still had to go to science class. Therefore I hated school. And then that usually jumps into work. Like, gosh, I got to get that paycheck so I can go to this job I hate. And I'm not saying that's horrible. Like, there's a time and place of just doing something. Like, get out there, get off your butt and do work. Like, don't feel entitled. Like, there's a whole world of people who wish they could go and just do something, even if they hated it. So there's a place of working hard in something you don't even enjoy. But even if you're in that area, which I've been in that, trust me, I've hated jobs, but you got to stick it out, do the best you can, while also allowing your mind to be creative enough to think, how can I get out of this? How can I go do something I actually am enjoying? And yeah, it's still work. Again, I love what I do right now. If I won the Powerball, I would keep doing this. It's still work. I am producing a good or service in exchange for dollars. And the passion itself there allows me to be better at it. Like I when I'm not even working at night, I usually, when I'm going to bed at night, most nights I sit there and read about taxes and estate planning. And I guess you could say that's work. I don't know. I like it though. So, yeah.
That's your Twilight, huh?
Oh yeah. It gets me going.
50 Shades of Grey, baby. Tax planning.
It's fun. But
talk about torture. That's funny.
No, I wish. Yeah, I wish more people. I wish there was a better emphasis on finding a balance of just doing the work. And I think that's what a lot of boomers hate on millennials about. Is like millennials millennials are lazy and only want to do what they're passionate about. And millennials hate on older generations because, like, well, you were a slave to corporate life. You never actually did what was important to you. Like, okay, it doesn't have to be one way or another. There's going to be a time in your life you just got to do the work. You're going to hate it, but go do it. Like, if you feel entitled to be the manager despite being 1 year in your career, okay, go work like you're the manager and do really well and get promoted. Like, don't just sit there entitled. But at the same time, like, if you're doing something you hate and you feel like you're just dead end, like, don't look at that like, well, I got to spend the next 35 years until I do retire doing this. Like, get creative, work really hard outside of your 9 to 5 and find a way to be able to jump ship and do your own thing or pivot into something that you're actually passionate about. But frankly, having that creativity and the autonomy and the flexibility to do that usually requires sacrifice. So like I said, I'm pretty young I'm supporting a family of 5, and I was able to just quit. I go and start my own thing. I wasn't able to do that. Like, I'm not a trust fund kid. I was able to do that because my wife and I, we live really frugally. We live probably off of and this is not making a lot of money. We live off of 50% of our income, maybe. We have for many years saved 40% of our income. And yeah, because of that, I was able to say, all right, I'm going to go start my own job, and I'm going to bet on myself, and I'm going to love it. And here we are. That requires, again, that's trade-off. If that was not important to me, the ability to go and start my own thing and have that time freedom and work, that optionality of where I am, I can work wherever I want. If that wasn't important to me, okay, I could have gone and bought Starbucks every day and driven a nicer car. But nice cars aren't important to me. So I drive a beater. I don't care. It's all about finding out what's important to you and actually aligning what you have with that. And again, if you don't even understand what's important to you, you're probably going to miss the mark because you're just haphazardly doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it all starts with really asking yourself some of those questions. If you had all the money in the world, what would you want to do with your time? If the next 10 years, you find out you only have 10 years left, how would you want to spend your time or invest your time? 24 hours. What did you miss out on? I think that's such a huge question. What do you wish you would have done sooner that you didn't get to do? What experience did you want that you didn't get to have for whatever reason? And that's a huge, huge question, because there's so many people who they don't really know. They've never considered, what if I did only have, what do I miss out on? Because that's something that tells you more about what should be, or what you might want to make your focus than what do I want? Well, what am I going to regret that I missed? That's a whole nother question.
I think for instance, I want to not have to work by the time I'm 45. Now, that's a goal. The reason behind that goal is so I can spend significant time with my kids before they have their own families, and then be able to spend significant time with my wife and then my kids and my grandkids one day. That's why I want early work optionality. Knowing that the reason why I want that is to be able to spend time with my kids helps me make decisions today. Okay. So it would be nuts if I said, I want to not have to work forever so I can spend time with my kids, but then go and neglect my kids every day in pursuit of building a career right now. That would be so ironic. So I keep that top of mind. Hey, I'm doing all this so I can spend time with my kids. Let's go ahead and take advantage of that right now. I'm going to make sure I read to my kids every night. And every morning we're going to play monster trucks and dinosaurs. And on the weekends, I'm going to be there. There's a place of sacrifice in planning for the future, but there's also a lot of wisdom in planning for the future, but also being present today. And there's that balance of how do I navigate making tomorrow better, but not sacrificing today where I just live in regret. And that's unfortunately, that's a conversation I've had to have so many times with people, that they're retired now and they look back. It's like, hey, I technically achieved everything I wanted, on a surface level, but I missed so much along the way. And how do you navigate that balance of being successful tomorrow, but doing what's important to you today?
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it's just do what you love and find a way to make money at it. That's my solution. I'm like, you know what? I'm not. Money is not a motivator for me. It's a. So let's first define. So I have what's called the incentive quadrant, and there's intrinsic inspiration, and then there's extrinsic inspiration, intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation. And I think anything that's on the motivation side is fear-based, and on the inspiration side is more hope and love-based. And so money does not motivate me. It doesn't. I'm not scared of anything on the financial side. I'm confident that I can make enough money to do whatever I want. And so it doesn't really motivate me. The idea of if you don't work harder, you're going to not have $500,000. I don't care. The thought of losing out on money doesn't motivate me. The thought of losing out on experiences, I would say, motivates me more. If there's a side of motivation, the experience is motivating. But then that far more than any motivation is the inspiration of like, I get to go spend time with my kids. I get to go on a hike with my kids. I get to go for a drive with my kids or whatever. Right. So that's way more inspiring than anything else has been motivating. I don't know the last time I was living in motivation. It's been a while. It's been a really long time. And I'm not rich by any stretch of anybody's imagination, but I have enough for my family and we have enough to save and we're happy where we're at. Like, we're still striving for more, right? It's not that we have become complacent where we're at, but striving for more, the sacrifice of the family doesn't need to happen. And I don't think it needs to happen for anybody else. Like, you don't have to sacrifice your family to make more money.
Yeah. I think there's a place of, there's that commonly mistaken difference between content and complacent. And, you want to be grateful and content with what you have, but don't go complacent. Obviously you want to keep bettering yourself in all manners. And now, actually, right before this conversation, a friend of mine was asking me how motivated I am by money. And I'm not very much so, but I guess in a sense, money is just a way to provide optionality. And that's when I'm very much a visual thinker. And a huge motivator for me, like we like getting out in the mountains. So I regularly think about going on long backpacking trips, like, doing the Appalachian Trail or the PCT or the Continental Divide Trail. Those things take a few months, and I want to be able to do those with my kids. And that will necessitate optionality, which usually is like, well, time freedom and money freedom. So those, I guess, money in a sense is a motivator, but I'm not sitting there like thinking of Scrooge McDuck and me diving into a pool of bills, but rather, what can this afford me? Man, it's great. It's time with my sons. And that is what drives me along to keep working hard and to be frugal. But
is that more inspirational? Like, you're inspired because you want to go do those things? Or are you sitting there thinking, man, if I don't go make enough money right now, then I'm not going to be able to do these things with my kids. So I better go make more money so that I can do them with my kids. Or are you saying, man, I'm so excited that when I have enough, I'm going to have that optionality, right? Because that's the difference between inspiration and fear. It's the end goal is the same place. It's just motivation. It's the negative side of what is going to get you off your butt rather than the positive side. And that's why I say I haven't been in motivation for a long time, just because I choose not to dwell on the negative side of stuff. Now, if I had no money and I was dead broke and I needed something, I bet you that it would be motivating at that point in my life, right? Like, I'm not saying that I could never get back to motivation. If all the stars chose not to align in Sam's favor, you bet your butt I'd probably get to a motivated state. It's just been a long time since I've been there. Because choosing to live in the happiness and love and the hope, I've just always been taken care of since I've chosen to live that way. So it's hard for me to imagine going back there, but also I totally believe that I would if that's what was necessary.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think a place of living in, I guess, inspiration and vision for the future allows for more creativity and flexibility versus constantly. And there's a place like there's a fight and flight, and there's times you're gonna have to fight, but constantly living there, you're going to be tense and you're not gonna be very agile, and you're not going to get too creative. If you're physically feeling threatened, like your jaw's going to tense up, your shoulders get tense. You're not flexible in that moment. You're not thinking creatively unless you're someone like MacGyver. But typically it's just like, what do I have to do in this moment? Versus if opportunity is in front of you and you can just, you have more of a vision and freedom to go, like you're going to give yourself permission to be more loose, see opportunity, create opportunity, and then act accordingly. I think it's important to even frame your mindset. Like I've had tons of conversations with clients, but also friends and family who feel stuck in their current jobs. And it's like, man, you're in your late 20s, early 30s. If you feel stuck right now, imagine how much more stuck you're going to feel when you're 42. At that point, you probably are sort of stuck, or like it's going to take right now. It might be inconvenient for a couple of years. In a decade, it's going to be a major life shift, and people are going to say you're having a midlife crisis. So reframe your mindset. I'm not telling you everyone to go quit their jobs and like just go do nothing, but allow yourself to become allow yourself to dream, allow yourself to actually think about, hey, what do I want? Get creative, and don't feel stuck. I think that goes a long ways. Like I just know, I think a lot of people are afraid of jumping ship and doing the entrepreneur route or going something more creative because they're afraid of failing. But I personally think, yes, failing would hurt, but I think lying on my deathbed or talking to my grandkids one day and having that regret of never even trying and betting on myself, that would probably hurt a lot more. That what if would sting a lot more than, oh, it didn't work out. I just went ahead and, worst case scenario, go back to a corporate job. Like, okay.
Yeah, that's not that bad. Right. No, I agree. Awesome. Well, here's the legacy on rapid fire. So 5 questions, 1 word to 1 sentence answers. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Cool. So what do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
Processes.
I know that feeling. I know it well. Okay. What's the hardest thing you've ever accomplished to this point in your life?
Probably currently 3 boys in 3 years, three hard-headed boys, and maintaining my sanity on a daily basis. But yeah,
I'm sure your wife has it worse than you, brother. Sure, your wife has it worse. What's your greatest success to this point in your life?
I don't know if it'd be a success or just a joy, but same thing. Raising my 3 boys and seeing them continue to grow and develop, and they're young, but just seeing their personalities grow into young men.
Awesome. And what is one secret habit, mindset, or behavior you think contributes most to your success?
Not to harp on it over again, but maintaining a mindset of understanding why something is important to me and keeping that front of mind as the motivator and the guide behind the actions I take. Awesome.
And then if you were to recommend 2 or 3 books to the Fuel Your Legacy audience, what would you suggest?
Gosh. So I'm a big fan of, there's a book called Love Does by Bob Goff. And on the professional side of things, for financial freedom, I'm the CFP books, if you want to get super nerdy. I'd say those are the top 2.
Awesome. Okay. And then this is the final question. So this is like really the whole reason I do this podcast and what I love most about it. It starts with the fact that I believe you are worth being remembered. Okay. So if we were to fast forward, you've died around 6 generations from now. So this is your great grandchildren sitting around the kitchen table, discussing your life, the impact you had, and the legacy you left. What would you want them to be saying about your legacy 6 generations from now?
I would say I'd want them to remember me as someone who always encouraged them to bet on themselves, to be confident, and to know that ultimately, like, I love them. I know this probably sounds super cliche, but I want them to know I love them, and I want them to feel confident that they can go out and do great things.
Awesome. That's incredible. I believe that because that's what this whole podcast has been about. I'm so grateful for you taking the time to hop on the show here and share your knowledge and your expertise with us. Thank you, Jim. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.